Is JP Morgan's secret move on XRP starting? Today, we're diving into facts, rumors, and signals that could reshape one of the most talked about cryptos. Stick around, because what you're about to hear might just surprise you. Everyone's buzzing about Bitcoin and Ethereum. But when JP Morgan shows interest in Ripple and XRP, everything shifts. Why? Because we're talking about the biggest bank in America. When a giant like that makes a move, the whole crypto market feels it. Before we dig into today's news, let's rewind a bit. Back in 2017, XRP skyrocketed from mere cents to over $3. Overnight, millionaires were made, and the hype was unreal. Then came the crash and the SEC lawsuit, bringing years of uncertainty. But Ripple didn't back down. They kept forging banking partnerships and expanding their on-demand liquidity network. They positioned themselves as the bridge between traditional finance and digital assets. Now, let's get back to the present. Why is everyone suddenly buzzing about JP Morgan and Ripple? What's this secret move analysts are whispering about? It all starts with one major event, Ripple Swell 2025. To everyone's surprise, Scott Lucas, JP Morgan's head of markets digital assets, is speaking there. That didn't go unnoticed, did it? Why would the largest US bank show up at Ripple's flagship event? Is it just a coincidence, or is something bigger brewing? JP Morgan doesn't make moves without a reason. Every appearance is strategic. So what does JP Morgan hope to gain from being at Ripple Swell? There are two main possibilities here. First, it's just diplomacy. JP Morgan wants to be part of the digital payments conversation. Second, there's real interest in XRP, maybe as a liquidity tool or collateral for new financial products. If it's the second option, the impact could be huge. But it doesn't stop there. A recent Ripple report shows JP Morgan among the top banks investing in blockchain initiatives. Not directly in XRP, but in digital infrastructure. And here's the kicker. When JP Morgan invests, they expect serious returns. What if XRP is part of this broader strategy? Imagine JP Morgan quietly preparing to integrate XRP into its liquidity solutions or using it as collateral for crypto-backed loans. That could shake the market to its core. And here's another clue. Reports suggest major institutions, including JP Morgan, are closely watching the ETF market. Some analysts predict an XRP spot ETF could attract billions in its first year. So who's ready to play in that field? Retail investors or big banks? Let's pause for a moment. If JP Morgan supports or accumulates XRP ahead of an ETF, the ripple effect could be massive. But is there real evidence or just speculation? This is where it gets interesting. JP Morgan executives recently called XRP a heavyweight in digital payments. That's not a casual term for them. When the largest bank in America respects a token, it signals intention. Respect in banking often foreshadows involvement. Are we seeing early signs of adoption? Or is JP Morgan just covering its bases? Let's consider the bigger picture. Ripple aims to serve banks, not replace them. Unlike Bitcoin, XRP was built to integrate with financial institutions. And who benefits most from faster, cheaper cross-border transactions? Global giants like JP Morgan. So is JP Morgan making its secret move now? Or are they just testing the waters, waiting for regulatory clarity before diving in? Think about it this way. The SEC lawsuit against Ripple dragged on for years. Now that Ripple has secured some legal victories, the environment is shifting. And if an XRP ETF is really on the horizon, big institutions will want a front-row seat. Here's the twist. If JP Morgan makes a move, they won't announce it first. They'll act quietly and strategically, and by the time the public hears about it, the game will already be underway. So let's summarize what we know so far. JP Morgan is speaking at Ripple Swell 2025. Ripple has listed JP Morgan among the top banks active in blockchain. JP Morgan has called XRP a heavyweight. Analysts project billions in inflows if an XRP ETF is approved. That's not nothing, that's smoke. And where there's smoke, there might be fire. But let's ask the harder question. What does JP Morgan stand to gain if they embrace XRP? First, speed and efficiency. Cross-border payments are slow and expensive. XRP solves that. Second, cost savings. Even a small percentage improvement means billions for a bank like JPMorgan. Third, positioning. If JPMorgan adopts XRP early, they could outpace competitors in digital finance. This isn't just about one token, it's about who controls the rails of the next financial system. And JPMorgan has never liked being second. But here's the reality check. There's still no official statement that JPMorgan is buying or using XRP directly. Much of what we've seen is interest, speculation, and cautious involvement in blockchain overall. So the safe conclusion is this. JPMorgan is circling Ripple and XRP. They're observing, analyzing, and maybe even preparing. But until they officially pull the trigger, we're left with smoke, not fire. In financial markets, the biggest moves often happen before the headlines. By the time the news is official, the real profits are already gone. So here's the million-dollar question. If JPMorgan does make a move, how high could XRP go? Some analysts suggest $5, others whisper 10. The boldest say 20 or more, especially if institutional inflows arrive through ETFs and banking adoption. Will that happen? No one can guarantee it, but the mere possibility is why so many eyes are locked on XRP right now. Imagine what happens if retail FOMO collides with institutional adoption. That's when markets make history. So, is JPMorgan's secret move on XRP beginning? We can't confirm it yet, but the signs are there. Their presence at Ripple Swell, their recognition of XRP's role, the whispers about collateral and ETFs, all point in one direction. JPMorgan is watching XRP closely. And if history has taught us anything, it's this. When giants like JPMorgan enter the arena, they don't come to play small, they come to dominate. Which brings us to you. Do you believe JPMorgan will eventually make XRP part of its strategy? Or is this just smoke and mirrors, a distraction while they build something else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. If you found this video insightful, hit like, share it with others, and subscribe for more deep dives into the future of crypto and finance. Because the next big move could be closer than you think, and you don't want to miss it.